Well, considering the most downloaded episode on my podcast to date was the episode with you on it.
You're welcome. Yes.
I look at the stats. I'm like, it's like triple every other episode. I don't know. People are interested in our dynamics in relationships, and it's actually a topic that you and I are super passionate about. So I'm happy you're here, babe.
Thanks, babe. It's also my stunning good looks. No,
Maybe. So,
what? You can't drink during this episode? Why are you containing me, bro?
That was just funny. 30 seconds in, he's like, I already need a drink of water.
Yeah, I'm nervous.
Are you?
I don't know what you're going to do to me right now.
Do you want to do some breath work?
Sure.
Eric woke up this morning and he was like, what are we doing? What's happening? What are we doing on the show? So anyways, do you really want to do some breath work?
I'm following your lead right now, girl. Whatever you want. Did we start? Did we start the podcast? Oh.
Let's do another.
No, I like this. Keep it rolling. Yeah. This is awesome. I feel like I'm on the female Joe Rogan podcast.
Let's keep manifesting that. That's awesome.
Okay.
So anyway, as I was saying, the last episode we did where we went through some of our rituals and our relationship and our just insights on relationship and I guess our philosophies on our relationship were really super beneficial. And that was 2 years ago. That was more than 2 years ago. That was May 2021.
Wow.
So we've done some shit since then.
Yeah.
We got engaged.
We did.
Oh, I'm excited to talk about that. I haven't done like a long form content on our engagement, so I'm excited to talk about that. So let's just flow and let's go. And I have some questions that I asked the community before the episode. And so we have a long list of questions. We'll get to as many of them as possible. But before we dive in, I'd love for you to answer the question, what is the number one thing right now that's making you feel most alive?
Wow. That's a good question. The number one thing that's making me feel alive, I would say the health journey that we're on right now. Yeah. Just like committing, the both of us together, committing to living and playing at a higher level in the health game. That is just bringing so much more energy to every other part of my life right now. So yeah, that's awesome. And obviously Freewyld and everything else that's happening. But I feel like because of the identity shift that you and I have had in the health game and committing to the trainers and nutritionists and, just our lifestyle around that, it's bringing a lot of energy to every aspect of my life.
The cool thing that I appreciate about you and the thing that I was actually talking to my parents about you when was I with them at Disneyland a couple of weeks ago when you were there? My dad and my mom, both of them were saying how impressive it is that you have this ability to constantly reinvent yourself. Like something happens in your reality and then you're like, here's the line, I'm drawing the line and I'm completely shifting my life from that point on. And I've seen you do that with money and I've seen you do that with your health. And I've seen you do that in our relationship, as a man in our relationship. So I'm curious because that's I think that's a really powerful quality. And Uncle Tony, AKA Tony Robbins, which you and I both love, he talks about that a lot. Like that, like not another, the thing that's in my head that he says a lot is like, not another day, not another minute, whatever. He's like, it stops now. And you have that ability to just say, enough is enough. Let's change my life. And I've seen you do that multiple times. And I'm curious if you can kind of explain the psychology behind that or the identity behind that, or just give the audience a little bit of an insight on your ability to do that, because it's so impressive.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know. It's interesting. I think one of the most incredible things about a relationship is, in the right relationship, is that you have your partner who can shine light on your character and your incredible abilities in life that you may not be able to see. Because I don't know. I've never noticed that until you started pointing it out to me. Right. Because I don't think it comes from a place of, I don't know where it comes from. It feels like, everything that you're talking about feels like almost like a failure. Like I failed at something and then I'm restarting. I create a new vision and I'm restarting to get after this vision. So I don't know where it comes from. But I think, over the last few years, you've been shining a light on that's how I show up in certain aspects of my life. And it's interesting for me to view that, because I feel my adult life has me been trying to figure out a whole bunch of different things, like most people in their 20s and 30s. And yeah.
But you mentioned vision in there quite a bit. So do you think that is part of your secret sauce? Like, you and I talk about vision all the time. I talk about vision with this community constantly. It's like, I really feel like that is the number one thing. Like, you and I have got vision boards all over our house and like our goals and shit like that all over our house.
Yeah.
But it's a powerful reminder every single day of the people that we are becoming and the people that we have decided in advance to become. And I know for me, before I even make the first move of anything, whether it's our health journey, like that's been such a fun thing to do, or something in pause or something in our relationship, there's a very clear vision that I write down, that I feel, that I embody, and I kind of show up as that person before the things manifested. And I know that's a huge part of your ability to create things as well. And it like with Freewyld, with your business, it's like that one day where we were walking down the mountain in Idyllwild, California, which is that's where we started dating. That's where we got engaged. And that's where we're getting married.
That's right.
We just decided that yesterday. Well,
Yeah.
we decided it a couple days ago, but we decided the date yesterday, which is super exciting. But even in that moment, of like, we walked past this property, this sort of like, it wasn't a rundown hotel by any means, but it was just like not very well maintained. And in that moment, you were like, there's the vision. This is what I want to do. If I owned this, it would be so rad. And then like a year later, you owned it, which was so amazing. So I think there's some magic as well to like putting things out into the universe and like having that vision and having the self-belief to go, not only do I have the vision, but I also have the self-belief or self-love or whatever it is to know that I can actually bring that into the world.
Well, I also think it's, for many years, I grew up with, we had enough in our family, but we didn't have the extras, and like anything we wanted in our life, we had to go out and earn and get it ourselves. And so for many years, I looked at these different lifestyles and things that I wanted that felt like they were so far out of reach. And I think through the self-development journey I've been going down, and once you start attaining things, you realize that, if you see somebody else with the things that you want or a lifestyle that you want, you have two options. You could either decide like, that person has that and I don't have it and I can't ever get it, or that person has it. How can I learn from them to achieve this if I truly want it? Right. So that's kind of where a lot of the vision work really comes from, is I see something that I want and there's really nothing out there that we can't individually achieve if we truly want it. Right. So like, and when it comes to realistic things, right? Like when I say realistic, I mean, like if I want to become a basketball player, NBA basketball player, that's out of reach, right? That's
I
not,
believe you can.
but it's like, that's not and I don't want it bad enough.
Right.
But, owning real estate, beautiful real estate around the world, achieving, generational wealth, achieving, an optimal health and body. Like those are things that I've wanted my entire life and been working on, and have visions, to achieve my entire life. And now after years of like cracking the code, not on just taking action, but the belief system, the vision, the emotions that go around it, it's like, we started attaining these things. For me, I feel like I'm always on a longer route to achieve things.
Yeah.
My entire life. It's always been just a little bit longer than what I want or what I see other people achieving.
I'm curious if that's a story.
Maybe.
Like, I'm curious what would happen if you were like, hey, I'm the type of person who, like, historically, it's taken me a long time to achieve things. But now the type of person that I am, the type of vision that I am, or the type of person that I am, the type of vision that I have I actually achieve things way quicker than I used to. I'm just curious.
Maybe.
Just doing some group therapy, you know?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I have no idea. We talk about this all the time, right? And I don't know. I mean, this also goes to my other business, right? Overnight success, right? The mindset is people want success and they want the things now, especially the world that we live
Yeah.
in. You know, one click and you can get something delivered to your house. And we were just talking right before we started. Like, let's order Starbucks, right, to the studio. It's like we want things now.
And then I was like, oh, Starbucks is so gross.
We want things now, but like real overnight success when it comes financially or in relationships or in, health, whatever it is, takes time.
Yeah.
Real overnight success takes a long time.
I remember
to
that was
achieve.
one of the first things that you said in our relationship. Do you remember at the beginning? Babe, it takes time. Things take time. Things take time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, Rome was built in a day. Like, let's do it all now. But I think there's like a beautiful balance between you and I the whole I'm so with you. Like things take time and things like our relationship, for instance, like the first, couple months, I was like, it's gotta be perfect now. Right. And I remember you saying like great things take time. And same thing with pause sometimes. I'm like, I want to have it all now. It's got to happen now. And that's just like the way my energy runs is like I do everything fast. I do everything on overdrive. I'm super energetic. And I think there's definitely a gift to that. But then there's also a distortion to that. And I think there's when it's fueled from inspiration and creativity, it's beautiful and it works really well. But when it's fueled from scarcity and like just wanting to get it done because I need to prove or whatever it is, then it can be destructive. Right. And so the same dynamic that plays, wherever you, what's that saying? Wherever you go, there you are. So that same thing that happens in business is in our relationship. So there's times where I'm like, we just need to get through this thing. Like, let's hurry up and get through this thing. And you always hold the stand of, it takes time. Great things take time. And I do love that. And I do agree with you as much as my ego fights it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, where you bring value to that conversation and that belief system is that exactly is the belief that you can have it. And I think that's what I've learned from you is the identity of understanding like, oh, I want this thing. I want to become this person. I want to achieve this level of success. It's a decision that I have it. And that's meaning like my worth, my value, my self-worth is there to believe that I have already achieved this thing. It just takes time to receive it. Right.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Will Smith had a famous quote back in the day and forget exactly how he said it, but it's, I've already achieved my goals. It's just waiting to catch up to me. Right. It's like he already believed that he was going to achieve what he was going to achieve. And now the world just has to wait to see
I love that.
it being achieved. Right.
I love that.
So there's yin and the yang of it all. But to really truly receive something of value, it takes time. And no matter what it is, our bodies, like we've been getting after the health game on so many different levels. And we're achieving incredible goals. But to truly get to that image that we have out on the wall is going to take a long time.
Yeah.
But we can cut corners and I can take steroids and I can, eat 1,800 calories a
and
day.
Stick things up your butt.
I don't know why I would do that. I don't know how that would help.
Apparently high dose melatonin up the butt once a night. Apparently that's, I don't know. Jason told me about it. I'm not sure.
Well, Jason can do whatever he wants with his butt. Stay away from mine. But you know what I'm saying? Like we can do all these things to achieve the goal faster, but it's never going to be what you truly want. I want ultimate health to where when I'm 80, 90 years old, I'm still enjoying life.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, that takes the investment now for me to really achieve this over time. So
yeah, it's like the whole thing, like life is hard and you choose your hard, right? That the way in which we live our lives and the way in which we run our relationships, some people are like, wow, that's really hard with like some of the commitments that we have and and we'll talk about that here in a second, some of our like rituals and commitments. that there's a certain level of hard, right? There's a certain level of having a commitment to doing a coffee date every single Sunday and sitting down and like talking through things. There's a certain level of, commitment, hardness to go to therapy and work on ourselves and go to individual therapy. There's a certain amount of hard that comes with that, but the result is we work hard so life has more ease. Not necessarily super easy, but life has more ease versus not doing any of that stuff. And then life is hard in a completely different way. And I think that's like, I will choose I guess you'd call it like proactive hard. I would choose proactive hard all day long. I would choose the path of being really mindful with my nutrition and my energy and my body so that the demands that I put on my body feel more easeful. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's another thing nowadays is like everybody wants something easy. They want life to be easy and simple and effortless. And I mean, that's just not how the universe works at all, and it's yeah, I don't see that stuff being hard. Like for me, like laying concrete is hard, hanging sheetrock is hard. Like that's a hard thing to do 8 hours a day,
Mm.
5, 6 days a week, right? To provide for your family. Us sitting down and having a open-ended conversation, it's like, it's uncomfortable,
Mm.
but it's not difficult for people to do. It's not difficult for us to do.
Then why does the whole world not do that if they know the result of like that's what I was thinking the other day. I'm like the impact that therapy has had on my life, the impact of personal development work that like I would be such a different person living such a different reality. Like then if it's not hard, then what's the resistance of people doing it?
I forget where I heard this saying, but you ever hear of the dog on the porch sitting on a nail?
Only because you've told me this 3 times.
All right.
But tell them.
Yeah. So it's let me see if I remember the story. Oh crap. The farmer, a neighbor arrived at the farmer's house, and the farmer's dog was sitting on the porch just crying, like barking and howling and all this stuff, but sitting there and wouldn't move, but making all this noise and crying and all this stuff. And the neighbor asked the farmer, why is the dog crying? Why is the dog making so much noise? And he's like, well, he's sitting on a nail. And the neighbor asked the farmer, well, why does the dog just move? And he says, it's not painful enough. Right. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, no.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and I think about that a lot of there's so many different things that are uncomfortable that we bitch about and we complain about and we whine about and we cry about and like all this stuff, but it's not painful enough for us to actually take action. Right. And I mean, perfect example of, recently what I've been going through, which is like making a transition from one company to another. Creating a hotel company from the ground up is not an easy thing to do. Yeah. And taking a very big risk to do this. And it's going to, I'm very confident in what we're doing and in the vision of what we're creating. But there's certain things during that journey that made me, it got me in a position where, I was ignoring certain things in my other business that wasn't painful enough to got to a point where it became painful for me to take action. Right. I'm talking in code because the details don't really matter, but this stuff comes up a lot. So the reason why people don't take action on certain things in their life, from therapy to self-development to quitting a job to, taking action with their health, is it's not painful enough.
Yeah.
It sucks. It sucks enough for them to bitch and complain and live in pain, but not painful enough to say, I had enough of this. And today is the day where it stops.
What I've noticed in my own personal journey is the more work I do on myself, the more work I do on my business and our relationship and just who I am, the lower my pain tolerance is, or maybe it's like my suffering tolerance. Like when something is out of alignment or something is not right or not aligned, it feels way more painful than it used to when I was more like numbed out and distracted and didn't really have the standards that I do today. It's like the more we're on this path, those things become so much more painful. Just like the more energy work we do, the more sensitive we become. It's the same sort of thing. And even things in our relationship, bringing it back, like weaving back into like the relationship conversation, is you and I have a very unique way of clearing tension in our relationship so we don't create lumpy rugs by just like throwing things under the rug, because that can create so much tension and so much resentment, and it just has like this undertone of having a really heavy relationship. And those conversations aren't fun to have sometimes, like navigating conflict is not fun. It's not great, but what it does is it allows us to like really look at the ugly and clear it and move through it and come back into a deeper place of resonance.
Mm-hmm. And I would also, say the more that you face certain things, especially the uncomfortable conversations or the challenging parts of your life, the easier it becomes to overcome other obstacles in your life, right?
Yeah.
We talked about it this morning of like, let's not pray for life to be easy. Let's
That's right.
pray for the strength to overcome the obstacles that I have in my life.
That's right. I had a freak out this morning. I was just moving energy. I do that sometimes. Like
of course.
I like, my way of moving energy is through like screaming, or like I'll just be like, I'll be in my office and I'll just be like, ah, and then Eric will be like, is everything okay up there? But I just need to move energy. And anyways, we got home last night from a trip and I got a letter that I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like just like some annoyance thing with like immigration and blah, blah, blah. As you guys know, I've been on a journey of being able to live here in America. And anyway, it was just one of those things where I'm like, in like a moment, I'm like, this is so hard. Like, why is it so hard for me to? And I had this moment of just like, frustration. And you brought that to me. You're like, don't ask for it to be easier. Ask to be stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that.
And that's something that I learned years ago in Muay Thai, of all things, right? Is when you first start training Muay Thai, for anybody who doesn't know that, it's kickboxing essentially, from Thailand. And when it revolves a lot of kicking, a lot of punching, elbows, all that stuff.
Is that what you did to me the other night? You Muay Thai'd me?
Yes, I Muay Thai'd you.
Oh my God. I was literally screaming in our hotel room and our friends came over. They're like,
No,
is
that's
everything
jiu-jitsu.
okay? Oh, that was jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I was pretty good though.
No, you weren't.
What are you talking about? You were like screaming.
Well, you were biting and pinching, so.
Is that not allowed?
No.
Oh,
no.
so I sucked.
Anyway, when I first started training Muay Thai, I remember Luke would say this all the time of like, how do professional Muay Thai fighters or MMA fighters deal with all the kicking and like the shins hitting each other and all that stuff, when if you walk by and hit your shin against a table, it hurt. It feels like your leg is broken. Right. It's all this pain, right? But over time of training and taking pain in certain areas and overcoming that, you build the resistance to your pain level just rises, right? And it's like, and then it doesn't become this daunting thing that you're afraid of anymore. Mm-hmm. And that happens in relationships, that happens in your personal life, in business, all this stuff, right? So you just have to, every challenge that comes along, it might suck and you can complain. What does Tony say? You can stay in your sorrow for 2 minutes and then you have to move on. Essentially, it's like, an emotion from dealing with something unpleasant is crying, screaming, being pissed off, whatever it is. But, you have to, you're only allowed to stay there for a short period of time. And then after that, you're just complaining, right? And nothing is moving forward. So you have to overcome that. And the more that you do that, the more that you take action with, this is uncomfortable, I don't want to deal with this, but I'm going to, and I'm going to do it with the best intention to solve the problem. Dealing with problems just become easier.
But there's also the somatic side to it where, like, I totally agree with you. And there's like the action and the point of like, okay, let's kind of like move on from this and not like wallow in it. But then there is this somatic side of it where like there's times where I'm like, I have so much energy in my body right now that I can't get into solution mode. I can't get into fix it mode. Like I have to really honor the process and cry and scream and yell. And that might take.
That's taking action. You're moving energy. It's the same thing. It's movement.
I got you. Okay.
Right? When you're screaming, I heard you upstairs today just screaming, and I knew it wasn't a scream of pain.
Yeah.
I knew it was a scream of frustration. So what did I do? I brought you blueberries. Well, I brought you one blueberry.
You brought me a blueberry.
Yeah, well, You enjoyed it. It was lovely.
It was like a peace offering.
But it changed your state.
It did.
And then we went downstairs, ate more food, and went back upstairs, and it was fine.
Yeah,
right? And
no,
it was
I
like,
felt good. I felt good.
but
But I
you're
used to
moving.
bottle that shit, you know?
Everyone does.
Yeah. And what I realize now is like a minute of just like honoring my true expression of like, I'm so fucking angry right now. Like, I'm so pissed. And just screaming and yelling and kicking and moving and doing breath work. It's like that cycle of emotion just moves through. It's the same thing like in our relationship, right? Like when we get into like, you and I are both very passionate people. We're not passive. We're not, we like to be heard. We like to speak our truth, and we like to do it more so loudly than not. We don't scream and yell at each other, and it's never like that, but like we're just very loud people. So there's times where we have
You're very loud, and I'm from New Jersey, so yeah.
You're loud in a different way. So there's times where we have CPR, where what does that stand for again?
I have no idea.
We made it up so long ago.
Yeah.
CPR. Chill, pause, which is kind of the same thing. We need to redo this. Chill, pause, not repeat, relax or something. Anyways, whatever.
CPR just means take a pause from the moment of this tension, but not running away from each other. Mm-hmm. That's a different. So like when we're in tension, it's like someone says CPR. That means, okay, we're going to table this conversation. We're not trying to make each other wrong or right.
Yeah.
And we're going to go to a separate part of the house. We're going to breathe.
Yeah.
We're going to take a moment, and then we're going to come back and solve the problem.
That's been one of the best things. And I love that we can just both call that out in the middle of conflict. Because when I know I'm in a part, and I know I'm in like a child part when I repeat myself when we're in conflict. Mm-hmm. So if I'm repeating myself or I'm saying something twice, I know I'm not operating from my like adult self. I'm operating from a child part. And that's where when I'm like, okay, CPR, like I got to get back into my alignment and get back. And I think having conflict resolution, little things like that are so important. And they can, whether it's like CPR or whatever it is, like having those things, because the truth is conflict is a part of every single relationship. Everyone has conflict. And what we've been learning recently is like, how can we have conflict that doesn't actually rupture each other, but is actually the catalyst for deeper transformation and love and connection? Because that's what it could be. It's like going to the gym and there's resistance in order for the muscle to grow. Relationships and love work in the same way. Like there needs to be like a rub for us to evolve into deeper connection.
Well, I think last night we had a huge moment where we grew through something that could have caused a major rupture in our relationship.
What happened last night?
When we got home.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That was my bad, bro.
Yeah. So, I mean, to shine some.
I just broed you.
Yeah. To shine some light on this is like,
Wait, tell them what happened.
I will. Yeah. Okay. We got home from a 3-day trip. And Sam was responsible for packing the food for the trip, and we have a big freezer in the garage that Sam left open. And
it's a bad design.
Okay,
it doesn't fucking shut.
Well, anyway, I mean, you got ownership here.
I did take ownership. I went in and I'm like, I'm so sorry. This is 100% my fault.
Yeah. So we had a whole freezer full of meat and food and all of that went bad. And, it leaked out into my, the garage is my office and studio and all that. So it just leaked out into everywhere. And it was heartbreaking. Obviously, it was a major mistake. The door, when you close it, pops open every once in a while. Right. And that's what happened there. And I felt myself react to it because it was so upsetting of all the waste essentially. And I realized in that moment, like, clearly this was a mistake. You didn't mean to do that, because I saw how upsetting it was for you, and you immediately took ownership of it. And I realized, like, we don't need to discuss this anymore. It's like, okay, what happened? I rushed, I slammed the door and it popped open. Okay, great. Well, in the future, we got to be present with closing it. We solve the problem, right? Or buy a new freezer.
Even though there's a big sign that says push.
John knows that sign too.
It says push hard to close! ! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark!
I mean, we can laugh about it because it's
Yeah.
like, you know, obviously we're both very upset about it because it's a lot of waste and we hate,
I
especially food
literally
waste.
prayed for the animals before I went to bed last night.
Yeah.
I was like so upset about that. It wasn't about the money for me. For some reason, I was like, oh,
Well, of course. Yeah. Yeah. But the reason why I bring this up is like I felt myself make a decision where I almost reacted the way that my father would have reacted or my brother would have reacted, which is not the most optimal way of dealing with the situation. And I saw you upset and take ownership of it. And I realized like, okay, well, this sucks for the both of us, but there's no need for this to affect our relationship. So let's come together and solve the problem. And we did. And I thought that was great. You know, it was some tension through the process of cleaning all this stuff up, but it didn't rupture the relationship where typically that would rupture an entire you know, an entire relationship for most people.
As I was on my hands and knees crawling on the floor, wiping up blood, I was like, I really appreciate how you handled that. You know, and it made me realize like, okay, when we have kids, because I always view that, you know, people's reactions to whether it's dogs or work or whatever it is, it's like, again, wherever you are, there you go. So the way that like our kids are going to do shit like that. And as I was,
they're definitely going to do shit like that. They're going to learn from their mama.
Life's about having fun, not paying attention. I'm just kidding. I was like on my hands and knees. I'm like, he's going to be an amazing dad. You know, like the way that you handled it, like you were stern and you whatever. It wasn't a joke. Like sometimes I make jokes around these things and it's probably not the pathway to go. But you were just like, okay, we're going to solve this problem. And it made me realize like, wow, that's such a great quality in a father because, you know, you're a dad, my dad, they did their best. They're amazing men, but still they learned from their fathers, whatever. It's like generational trauma. So it's fun for us to go, okay, how do we want to be in our relationship? How do we want to be in our, you know, we didn't have examples of the marriages that were really deeply thriving. Like my mom and then my stepdad, like they're pretty great. But then I also have my first imprint of marriage, of a relationship, was my mom and my dad, which was the most unhealthy, toxic, tumultuous thing ever. And, you know, your parents are amazing now, but historically that wasn't the case, right? And so what's beautiful about this path and what's beautiful about the relationship that we get to cultivate is like we get to decide what type of relationship we want to be in. And again, going back to vision, you and I do a lot of vision work on who are we becoming as a couple? What's our relationship actually in service of? It's like this we. Like, yeah, I look at it as like a Venn diagram, right? There's you and everything that you are, and then there's me. But then in the middle, there's this like very important we, which is us. And we can't have that by ourselves, you know? And it's a really sacred thing. It's a really beautiful thing. And it's moments like that where we have a massive mess up. It's like, that's an invitation. Are we going to come closer and solve the problem, work as a team? And we did, it was great. Or are we going to play the blame game and get mad at each other and go to bed angry?
Yeah.
You know? And it's like every single moment we have a decision. Are we going to collapse into our survival strategies and make this the other person's fault? Or are we going to take a breath, regulate, CPR if we need to, and really look at it from a 30,000 degree view? And that's like working a muscle. You know, it's like not getting sucked into how we used to be or how we saw our parents do it, but really making a choice of what's authentic for me in this relationship and what's authentic now in this moment based on all the growth that I've done and who I want to be. And I think that's a big thing going back to vision. I bring it back to vision a lot because it's just so important, but I have a vision of the type of partner that I want to be for you. You know, it's a very clear vision and I refine it and I shift it slightly, but ultimately it's very... You're like, does she fucking cook?
Nope.
Does she clean a toilet? I don't think
Nope.
so. But that's not my vision. That's not what I'm down for. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you don't need to, right? Like that's not, I learned very early in our relationship.
Come on, I try though.
I know you do. I know. But what I learned very early in our relationship is like, that's not the value that you're bringing to our household. Like
Mm.
like when you're having fun and you want to cook and connect with me by doing that, you do that, and we created an event around it. But it's not going to be like my parents' relationship where my mother cooked every single meal and dinner,
Mhm.
which was very special for them. Like
For
they
sure.
opened up and
That
shared.
was
I
really
never
cute.
knew this, but they shared with us that, like, you know, the one thing my father wanted in a relationship was to have a family dinner every single night, because he never had that, right? So it was something that my mother brought to the relationship, right? I always looked at it was like, oh, my dad's working his butt off and mom's always home, you know, cooking and cleaning. It was very stressful for her on that. But I learned in our relationship, like, that's not like those moments of us cooking together, or you cooking for me, or cleaning, what you call puttering around the house. It's like, that's not the value you're bringing to the relationship, nor nowadays do we, you know, we actually need that,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
I cooked for you last night, though. Don't you remember?
you did?
You
What?
don't remember?
You cooked?
I made you something.
You okay. Yeah, I wouldn't call that cooking, but yeah.
One of our favorite snacks is, okay, it sounds kind of gross, but it's so, your dad hated it, but I
Yeah.
love it. You like it, right?
Yeah. Sure.
That was so not confident.
Sure. Yeah.
Cottage
It's
cheese.
amazing.
Cottage cheese, frozen berries, a little bit of honey, a little bit of vanilla extract, and it becomes this like really awesome, healthy, protein-rich dessert at night. It's great. That's what I made you last night.
Boom. Thank you.
But you're right. But here, okay, let's talk about power couples then, because I think there's an interesting. Well, let me ask you.
Okay.
When we first started dating, it was actually our second date. First date, maybe. No, our second date was with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
That was funny. That was amazing. My mom was like, so who's this boy you're dating? She was in town from Canada. And I'm like, he's, you know, his name's Eric, like da-da-da. And she's like, you should invite him for dinner tonight. I'm like, Mom, no, I've only met him once. And then I remember I called you and I told you, I'm like, oh, my mom's being so funny. She invited you for dinner tonight. And you're like, cool, what time should I be there? And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you mentioned is you didn't want to date an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now you are. So
I am. Yeah.
what changed your mind?
Well, you, right? It's the person that I fell in love with, right? And it's not the career. You know, we have to adjust our visions from time to time, right? We can't be rigid and say this is the only thing I want and stick to that 100%, right? It's like you have to be open to adjusting based on what the world and universe gives you as you enter into that journey, right? So like when we started dating, I created what was called my dream queen list. I think we talked about it on the last podcast. But I created my dream queen list of, you know, who is the ultimate person, the female that I want to bring into my life. What does she look like? What does she do? What is she passionate about?
She was blonde, by the way, guys.
She was blonde. She was tall. She was blue eyes, non-entrepreneur.
So not me.
All these things, right? And then the question for me as a man is like, who do I have to become to attract that woman into my life, right? So the reason why I put on there that I didn't want to date an entrepreneur is the commitment that an entrepreneur needs to bring into his or her life.
Yeah.
Behind that, right? You have a huge vision and goal, and you lead a lot of humans, not just with your team, but with your clients, and you have this impact in the world that takes a priority in our life.
Yeah.
And in our household, right? And it's like we now have to adjust to building a life together and a family together with two entrepreneurs, two business owners, right? And it's like that's a challenging thing to do. It's not impossible for us to develop the lifestyle that we want and the family that we want, but it's different from a female who is committed to the family, right? And saying, this is my priority. I'm not saying that your business is more of a priority than family. That's what I'm saying. There's more of a dynamic to understand there, right? And it's like you're successful at what you do, and you're always going to be successful at what you do. And I don't know, like I look at other professional females that are very successful in their careers and they have families, and I don't know how they navigate it. And it seems like at some point there needs to be a decision to either build the business for you to step out
Mhm.
and that for it to run and continue to hit the goals to focus on the family, or stepping out of the business to focus on the family. And
Yeah.
I don't know of that, but that's why I wrote, I don't want an entrepreneur because of that, the challenge that's there. But then you came into my life and said, okay, great. I want this human, and it comes along with this incredible business and the impact that you're having on the world. So
Mhm.
we get to shape the family the way that we want.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting for us to navigate,
Mm-hmm.
as we get married and have kids, and I have no idea what that's gonna look like, truthfully. And thinking of, like, my upbringing, I used to fake that I was sick and watch this program in Canada. You always laugh when I say program. What do you say?
Yeah.
TV show?
TV show
I watched a TV
program.
show called A Baby Story, which is, like, the worst show ever, but it basically just documents women during their pregnancy and then their
Mm,
delivery, and I was obsessed with it. I've always been obsessed with babies. I've always been obsessed. I'm like, you see me with our friends'
yeah.
kids, I'm like so obsessed with kids, and Emerson and
Mm-hmm.
Max and Lorelai, like our nieces and nephews, like I love them so much. I'm like, this is so crazy, and they're not even like my children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know once we have kids, that's going to be such an important thing in. I don't know why it's making me emotional. It's gonna be such an important thing, and I'm so excited, but there also is this, like, I love pause so much, and it's like, that is gonna be an interesting thing for us to navigate because I love what I do so much, and I would literally do it for free because 'cause I'm so obsessed, and it feels like such a mission. So, I'm in the process of, like, creating, like, why am I crying? Like, it moves me because it's like those are, like, the 2, you and, like, being a mom and then running this organization and it having all this impact and, like, bringing breathwork to millions of people, like, I know we're gonna figure it out, and I know pause is not gonna sacrifice by me having a family, and I know my family is not gonna sacrifice by me running this business, and there's gonna be seasons where, like, yeah, I'm gonna have to pull back a little bit, but I also have the most incredible team and the most incredible leadership team and, mentors who mentor our students, and I think I know it's gonna all work out
Well, yeah,
beautifully.
yeah, and it's what it all, going back to the vision. It's the vision, right? We have to get to a point where it's clear on what is our number one priority and value in life,
Yeah.
right? And it's like at the end of the day, why are we doing all these things? Why are we building businesses and creating generational wealth? What you and I talk about, and it's not so we can buy cars and
Mhm.
all that stuff. Like that stuff is nice to have, but it's not what we're motivated by, right? And it's like at some point, it's going to get where you and I really connected early on is like, family is our number one value
Yeah.
in life, right? So it's like at some point, and what you just said is like you love pause so much that you would even do it for free. And it's like, we get stuck in this entrepreneurial uh cultural mindset or belief that we have to always be growing and focused on KPIs, and we got to
Yeah.
grow, and we got to do this marketing thing and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that's not important,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
like the impact that you're having through this podcast, through your app, through everything else is what's important. And at the end of the day, we're going to get to a point where we have to decide what takes priority.
Mhm.
And I know family will take priority because we always talk about that,
Yeah.
right? And it's like the other thing that I've learned through this process too is like at any point that you decide to say, okay, I'm focused on our family. I don't want to worry about KPIs. I don't want to worry about money and growth and profit and all this
Yeah.
stuff. I'm going to do what I'm passionate about, which is creating,
Yeah.
right? Because like, and for people who aren't entrepreneurs, like as CEO and a founder of your company, you're not just doing this and the creation and
Yeah.
like all the stuff that's having the impact. You're leading humans, like your
Mhm.
team, and making decisions and
Yeah.
solving problems every single day. Like
Yeah.
that's the stuff that is super challenging.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's like what I realize as the man in the relationship, it's like you can make as much money as you want, right?
Mm.
But at the end of the day, it's my responsibility to provide and protect, right? And that means is if you decide one day to do everything for free
Yeah.
and not worry about money and do what you want to do and focus on your family, awesome. Because I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing and providing for the family. That doesn't mean that you can't earn whatever and create whatever you want. Like that's not that type of relationship between us, right?
I feel like you would prefer that. There's a part of me that feels like you'd prefer that.
Look, it's
not me making no money, but just anyway. I
go
feel
deeper
that
into
primal. You've always said that that's so important to you since like the day we started dating, of how you love to protect and provide, and you have that masculine energy.
Look, I don't want to speak for all men, but all the men that I know that I spend time with, including myself, it's like, you know, I don't need you to make money for our family, right? You can make millions and millions and millions of dollars doing what you want to do. That's not why I'm attracted to you. That's not why I want to have a family with you, is because the money that you can create.
You don't want a sugar mama?
No, like that's not it, right? Like the reason why we do all these things is to create a strong lineage, a family. And I see you with children. I see you with our family, you know, and like our extended family and friends, and even the way that you treat your friends and family around you. It's like, you know, I want you to lead our family. I want you to have my children. I want you to raise these children and pass down the knowledge that you have and the love that you're giving to the world to these kids, right? Like just imagine what we're going to create together. It's going to be amazing, right?
You can make me cry.
I don't need you to make money. It's freaking awesome that you do. I think it's amazing. It's awesome to see what you create for this world, and you're really freaking good at it. But if you decided to walk away from it, it's only going to motivate me to play at a higher level.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, I got it. Don't worry about it. Like this is the money, the lifestyle that we want. Cool. I got it.
Yeah.
You don't need to, like, that's not why I'm with you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah. 100%.
Is that shrinking at all? Like, is that building?
There's a part of my nervous system that feels relaxed in that, but I've honestly, yeah, it's such a unfamiliar feeling to me, you know, of like there's a part of my system that's like, I know the type of man you are, and like you would do that tomorrow. I know you would, but there's a part of my body that's so unfamiliar with that, you know, like even building my companies and everything. Like my parents have never given me $1, you know, ever. I haven't asked for any money. I haven't taken any investment. Like everything that I have, everything that I've built, I've just done it myself. And so the feeling of being financially provided for is so foreign to me, if I'm completely honest with you. It doesn't feel shrinking at all or like contracted. It's just like, whoa, that's so weird to me.
But let's be honest, like you've done an incredible job setting yourself up in any way. Like you can stop everything that you're doing and be okay, right? And you know how to make money, you know how to create products, you know how to lead people, you know how to bring value to people's lives. You know the formula behind generating any amount of money that you want to generate, right? So making the money is not a challenge. Like, and you're always like, even if you came to me and said like, hey, I don't want to be a CEO anymore. I just want to create.
Yeah.
Right. I don't care about money. I'm not even going to take a salary and like whatever it is. It's like you're always going to figure out how to generate cash. It's not that. It's the identity of showing up every day with the mindset that you have to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I was thinking about this about a couple friend of ours. I'll save the names for later. You might be able to piece it together.
Like, who is this?
Where the man in the relationship, extremely wealthy and successful. He created a wellness company, and unlimited amount of money. He was dating one of our friends in the past who felt like she needed her value in the world was creating a company, and she wanted to do this thing, and he supported her for a long time, but he watched her, and when I mean supported, not financially, emotionally supported her through this process. And she got to a point where what she was going after was taking away from the relationship because it wasn't working. Her business wasn't working. She wasn't making the right decisions. And for him, it was like, we don't need to do this. You don't need to worry about money. Just do what you want to do for fun and out of passion. Don't worry about the money. She only worried about like how much profit I was making and how can I grow and blah, blah, blah. And it ultimately got to a point where he did not want to play that game anymore and split them up. Right. And watching her over the last couple of years going through the process of trying to create, and just like that shows up in the relationship a lot because she felt like she needed to do this to be valuable in the world. And I think that's a big cultural issue that we're going through right now as well, where, and hopefully I don't piss people off with this, but this is just my personal, let's go into this, where there's this cultural belief that nowadays that we have to, both men and female have to be equal at everything we do. And the money-making side of the business, of the relationship, and this is just my view, I don't think that's the biggest value to bring to the relationship. I think it's freaking awesome what you're doing. I've never once told you to stop. I don't believe that you should stop. I think you should continue doing what you're doing. But at the end of the day, it's my responsibility that when we decide to have kids, if you're like, hey, I'm going to be with this child, I'm going to raise this child, this is the only thing I want to focus on is raising this incredible human being. I'm going to take a year off. Cool. Do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this a lot, and we had a lot of these conversations when I was creating the Life Mastermind, because you were you didn't really experience me when I was running Hungry for Happiness, when I was hustling crazy, like you and I weren't together then. No. So that's like a part of my life that you didn't really get to experience. But when I was creating the Life Mastermind, I was so tuned into the knowing in my body of how I want to do business. And like I said, I don't want to do business with a dick. I don't want to. That's what I've said to the women. Like, let's not do business as if we have a dick. Like, there's a new way to do business, and it's a feminine way. It's more creative. It's more open. It's more using our bodies as the vessel for like healing and creativity and collaboration and connection. And when we tap into that intelligence, we actually work way less, and the work that we do is so potent and so powerful. And that's how I run Pause. I'm very, very rarely stressed about work. Right? Is that a true statement? Like, what do you think?
I'm feeling into that. I wouldn't agree with that.
Okay, tell me why.
Because I watch you in Life Mastermind. I watch you on your lives. I watch you on this podcast. Like, I'm just sitting back watching you do your thing, and it's just so natural and loving, and like you get energy from this, right? And it's like you get energy from creating. You get energy by giving, doing like giving your motherly love to what you create. Like, you're a creator, right? And that I watch you have no stress around. Like, you can run Life Mastermind every single day, and you'll get energy.
And the breathwork. I love the breathwork program and the somatic coaching program.
100%.
You're talking like when I'm live coaching people.
That's what I mean.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Is like when you show up and you're coaching and you're giving to people, that's where you thrive. And then there's the business side, the KPIs, the accounting, the paperwork, the leadership, the decision making. It's like you're really good at that. But that's what stresses you out, because it's not the creating side. It's very structured and black and white, and we got to do it like this to grow. And it's like that when you're in that more, I see you a bit more stressed. But when you get over to the creative side, like
I
It's
wouldn't
incredible
say
to
it's a
see that.
level of stress though that
Maybe
has an
stress is not the right
impact.
word.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Like when I'm doing this podcast and when I'm even on Instagram or doing the embodiment calls on Tuesday or the life
Yep.
mastermind calls,
Yep.
I am on freaking fire. Like I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with it. Like any retreats, living,
Mhm.
running, we just did the level 2 breathwork facilitator. I was like, this is you asked me how it was. I was like, the best thing I've ever
Yeah.
done. Right. When I'm in those environments, it is so amazing. I know what you're pointing to.
Mhm.
It's like when I am making decisions and, like I have to do a lot of hiring and a lot of firing and a lot of decision, like there's an energy there. There's a different way of being. And when I forget to be aligned and in my power when I'm doing those things, I know what you mean.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say though it seeps into our relationship and it has an impact on our relationship like a lot of entrepreneurial relationships though.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it impacts us too much. And it's the same thing that I bring to the relationship, right? When I'm in the areas of my business that stress me out or is not my highest value that I bring to my businesses, it impacts the way that I show up.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
So I think to wrap up this whole conversation, I think that the biggest thing for us is like creating the vision of the type of relationship that we want and the family that we want. And then everything else serves that. Right.
Yeah.
So Pause can be $1 billion company if you and your team choose for it to be. We just have to decide at what point, at where do we put our energy throughout the
Mm,
day to make our number one priority, which is family,
for sure.
always our number one
For sure.
priority.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Okay. So, a few things before we wrap up. I really want to give the audience tangible things that they can take away and implement into their relationships. And then there's a few little questions that people asked us on Instagram to answer as well.
Let's do it.
Okay. So, let's talk about our flow and some of the rituals that we have on a weekly basis that we do in order to stay touched in with each other. So, Thursday nights, what do we do?
Date night.
Thursday nights is date night. So that's like non-negotiable every single Thursday. Either Eric plans it or I plan it. And unless there's like, we're so committed to that.
Yeah. I mean, this Thursday, we're in 2 different countries, right? So we're not doing that. But we just got back from a 3-day incredible trip together in Mexico with our friends and
Mhm.
things like that, right? So when we're home and we're going through our typical schedule and all that stuff, it's like every Thursday is for us.
Yeah.
There's no
And
negotiating.
guys, there's something so powerful. Eric's such a stand for this, and I appreciate this about you as well a lot, is you are such a stand for being off technology during our ritual times. And we'll talk about our Sunday ritual in a second. But Thursdays, so Eric's company is called Freewyld. And for those of you who follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen him building this. It's so beautiful. It's in Idyllwild, California. And it's opening when is it opening actually?
I don't know.
By the time this podcast
October.
launches,
Yeah.
it'll probably be open. So definitely go check that
Yeah.
out. But Freewyld. I'm going to take all the credit. I came up with the name. Thank you very much.
She's not lying.
So good. But there's this, you call it wild mode.
Yeah.
So wild mode is one of the whole like brand philosophies is being disconnected from tech and reconnecting to what matters, having amazing conversations. So during date night, like these freaking things are so distracting all the time, always being pulled, always being pulled. You're so good at this. Even when we're on a road trip, you're like, hey, wow, let's go into wild mode. And the amount of joy and connection and gratitude that comes from not being connected from our devices is just so amazing. So
Yeah.
on date nights, I love that we practice wild mode where we, unless like I'll take a picture, of being
Sure.
like date night or whatever. Oftentimes on date nights, we're doing something super fun and cool. So we want to kind of capture the moment, but just having that time, a couple hours on a Thursday, being super disconnected from work and everything else and everyone else, and just spending that time together is just so perfect.
It's important. I mean, everyone needs that. If you're in a relationship, you got to carve out intentional time to be with each other. And the wild mode thing is just an aspect that we're bringing into our life as often as possible. But it kills me to see, families or couples out to dinner or, wherever together and they're both on their phones looking at we don't need to do that stuff. And these things are designed to grab and keep our attention, right? So it's like we have to, and that just drives tension in your everyday relationships with everybody. Right. So it's like when we're together, we have to be together, and like we never miss anything. Like we're not missing what's being posted on Instagram. We're not missing what's being posted on Twitter or X, whatever it's called. And like,
Yeah.
there's no point to be on it all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And if you realize that you're addicted to it, and that's okay. Just put it in the wild box.
We
and
literally have this
disconnect.
box, guys, at our house. It's called the Wild Box. And when we have dinners and we have friends over, we get everyone to put their phones in the Wild Box.
Yeah.
So we can just be with each other. And then it just creates such beautiful connection. We'll have the fire going. We'll listen to music.
Yeah.
Like we put the lights on and candles, and we just talk and connect.
Yeah.
And it's just so beautiful. So that's Thursday nights, date night, super
Yeah.
fun. So Sundays is something, the reason why our last podcast got so popular, or the reason why it was shared so many times, and it's again like the most listened to episode, was because we taught everyone our coffee date, which is our ritual that we created. It was actually amazing. The first week or two of being in a relationship with you, you brought this to the table, and you're like, "Hey, let's have a touch on our relationship every single week." And it was like a couple of weeks into dating you, and I was like, "Oh, that's quick." Okay. I was like, "This man is not messing around." But it's been really beautiful. And I'm just gonna, just so I don't forget, I'm just gonna kind of go through there's 7 different points. So here's the vibe of the coffee date. Pick a coffee shop in your local town. Go get out of the house. Like it's really important to do this out of the house. Go somewhere where there's like a little bit of a hustle bustle. Bring your journal, because the whole idea is go through these 7 points and just journal down like a word or like a few sentences or whatever. Like put your answers down first. And then the coffee date is about sharing them with each other one at a time. So the first thing of the coffee date is acknowledgments. So how does that go?
Yeah. So the idea here is that you always kick off the coffee date with acknowledgments of me giving you love on things that I just truly appreciate how you showed up to the relationship. Right. So like one could be, hey, I really appreciate and I acknowledge the way that you showed up yesterday helping clean up the mess. And like, you know, I saw that you were upset, but you showed up and you were with me to clean this whole thing. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Right. It's things like that, just little things.
And
like,
be specific, you guys, with your acknowledgments. Like, don't be like, "Hey, I love how nice you are. I
Right.
love how thoughtful." It's like, find the moments of, "Hey, I really appreciated a couple days ago when this happened. This is how it made me feel, and I really appreciate."
Yeah. And the idea behind this too, it's like as you're going through your everyday life and you're doing these things, you realize like, hey, this actually makes my partner feel loved, right? By doing this. So okay, I'll
do a little bit
I'll
more
do
of
the
that.
dishes.
Totally.
Fine.
And then I'll unload the dishwasher. Okay. So then after I acknowledge Eric, then I ask him, "Is there anything that I missed?" And
Right.
the beautiful thing about this is sometimes he wants to be acknowledged. Maybe he did something, and for me, it was like, it didn't register as like, "Oh, that was amazing," or whatever. It didn't register as something that I was really grateful for, but it's important for you to be acknowledged. So you were like, "Hey, I did this thing for you and you didn't really notice. I just want to like let you know, like I'd love to be acknowledged for that." So there's that too. The second thing is opportunities for growth. Now, this is not the time for you to be like, "Everything we did last week was shitty." Right?
Yeah. I mean, we got stuck in that in the first.
We definitely did. The first year of our relationship, we got stuck on number 2. And most times we would leave the coffee date pissed off and we're like, "Fuck this."
Yeah. We wouldn't get past it.
We wouldn't
right?
get past it.
So the idea of opportunities of growth is bringing to the relationship parts that you want to grow through together, right? So where we made the mistake in the beginning was like, "Hey, you did this thing and it really upset me." And what we're actually doing there is saying, "I want an apology," right? And it's like, you know, that's not what this is for. It's more of, hey, as a relationship, you know, in this relationship, I think an opportunity of growth could be, you know, implementing more CPR into challenging conversations, right? I think we can grow as a couple here, or I think we can grow as a couple. And opportunity of growth is how we communicate to each other during moments of tension.
For sure.
It's that versus, hey, you didn't do your dishes last week and I want an apology because I did it for you. It's like,
but say for instance, that's a thing, right? So say for instance, someone doesn't do their dishes. Just create a system around it. Like, Eric and I have a system where every single morning I make the bed and he makes coffee. That's just our system,
Yeah.
right? So if there's a thing that's happening in your relationship where it's getting dropped day after day and it's causing tension, create a system around it. Hey, how about like I'll just I'll just unload the dishwasher every single day or whatever it is, and you do whatever. Like just create a system around it. Then it's out of sight, out of mind, and you don't have to play the blame game for it. But this,
Mhm.
yeah, opportunities for growth, even with like communication stuff, like, hey, when you said that, it had this impact on me.
Mhm.
Right? Little things like that. It's not pointing the finger, but it's like really holding the we. Opportunities for the relationship to grow,
Mhm.
not for you to grow
Right.
or me to grow. It's for us to grow. So that's a big point there. Personal wins. This is business or personal. So sometimes, our lives are so busy and there's, amazing things that happen at pause all the time in my personal life, in your personal life. And this is just a chance to be like, hey, here's like a really cool win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more to say on that?
No,
That's
I mean,
great.
it's pretty simple. It's
Yeah.
just, it's a moment to celebrate with your partner,
Yeah.
what you're working on. Cause a lot of times we don't know what we're working on. Like we share, but we're going through the motions of the day to where that once a week you can come together and like, hey, a couple personal wins is X, Y, and Z. And you guys celebrate that together. It's a beautiful moment.
I'm a huge advocate for celebration. Like I am like, we gotta celebrate everything. Like even the whole time through Freewyld, I'm like, "Oh, the mulch is in. Let's celebrate." Eric's like, babe, we're not done yet. I'm like, yeah, but the mulch is here.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's like celebration is just so joyful and it gets the energy going a lot. So if we can like remember to celebrate and celebrating like our personal wins, whatever. It's just fun. The next one is sex. So this is sex do's, don'ts, want more of this, want less of this, don't do this, don't jujitsu me. I'm kidding. That wasn't during sex.
I mean, that's pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
It's like most relationships, there's no space to talk about this intimate thing that you're only having with this one human being on this planet,
Mm.
right? It's a beautiful thing that two humans can have, together, especially in a committed relationship. So it's like, got to carve out space to talk about it.
Totally.
And, it's amazing because you can grow together in so many different aspects. So once a week, kind of check in and
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah. And it's fun because sometimes those conversations can have a lot of like weird energy around them, especially if like you or your partner, um, you know, had weird stuff in your past. Just like being able to talk about that and say like, hey, I don't like this because of this. That's a beautiful thing.
mhm.
The next one is fun trips, adventures, and creating moments that matter. So this is kind of like looking ahead to go, okay, what's on the calendar? If nothing's on the calendar, what do you want to do? What's something that you've been
Mhm.
wanting to do? Whether it's like, I really want to try out this restaurant, or let's go see a comedy show, or let's do something, you know, finding some space to actually plan that. Because in my experience, oftentimes, like I'll be like, I want to do this, I want to do this, and you keep saying it, and then it never gets done. So
Right.
this is the time to be like, okay, we're doing it. We're picking a day. It's happening. So
But
that's
also that's like, our lives are so busy. We're
yeah,
building businesses. We got so much going on that we need a place to just sit down and make sure that we're on the same page for this week.
yeah, for sure.
Right. That's what it's
Mhm,
about. And I
mhm.
think, I look at, our friends' lives, our family's lives, and like, having 9 to 5 jobs and kids and all these other things, there's so much happening
Mhm.
that even if you carve out some time to go through it and be on the same page, it just makes that week a little bit easier.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And then goals, visions at a high level. So this is again going back to like vision work. If you
Mhm.
guys haven't picked up that we love this. Yeah, goals and visions of like, okay, where are we at with our relationship vision, with our financial vision, with our health vision, with all of the goals, like where are we at? Like what support do you need? What support do I need? Kind of like talking it through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's important too, is like actually sitting down and talking about visions and
Mhm.
goals and setting those things together. It's been amazing because like I get to talk to you about my goals in my personal life and my business life and
Mhm.
everything in between.
Mhm.
So, and you get in that cadence every single week. And, don't, in the beginning, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do it every single week. And we thought like if we missed a week that we're in trouble, right?
Mhm.
It's like, that's not what it's supposed to be about. This is supposed to be a place where, nothing else matters. You guys are together and you're building this relationship together. And
Yeah.
we have so many people, friends of ours, that have implemented this and just like thriving relationships.
Yes.
And it's just so cool to see.
Yeah, it's like setting the intention to do it every single week. If you miss a week because life gets busy, life is lifey, it happens.
Mhm.
But like holding the vision of doing it every single week. And then the last one is challenge check-in. So review the current challenge that we're doing. So we love doing challenges, whether it's like we did the carnivore challenge
Yeah.
that one time.
Yeah.
Right now, I think our biggest, it's not necessarily a challenge that we're doing right now, but like our lifestyle of health, like
Mhm.
hiring Daryl and Amanda to help us with like personal training and nutrition and really dialing in that side of our lives. That's kind of like the biggest, like one of our biggest priorities right
Mhm.
now is that. So during the coffee date, like, hey, how are you doing with that? Any support that you need? That
Exactly.
kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's that. And so this should take you an hour, right? It's
Or
been
less.
an
Yeah.
hour or less.
I mean, we've done them in 30 minutes. We've taken 2 hours to do them,
Yeah.
but yeah, you can dedicate as much time as you want to it. And what's the podcast episode that people can go back and listen?
201.
201.
Yeah. So that's 201 on the Sam Skelly show if
Yeah.
you go back. Yeah.
We go deeper into it. So
Yeah.
I highly recommend listening to that.
Yeah. Okay. We have a few questions. We're not going to get to all of them that they asked.
Okay.
I know we're kind of running over, but we do have a few of them. So how do you navigate conflict? We touched on CPR a little bit. Do you have any frames or any context you can share on navigating conflict or some mindset around that?
Yeah. So I was actually talking to Daryl, my trainer, today about this. And there's 3 main points that always come up in my mind now that, whenever we have conflict is, one is CPR. We touched on that. It's someone says CPR, let's just take a break and come back to solve it. But 2 is one I learned from you and one I learned from our friend Shiv, right?
Okay, yeah.
One is that it only takes one out of the 2 of you to say sorry and say, hey, I want to resolve this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I know you learned that from Tony,
Mm-hmm.
right? Tony Robbins. So that's always in my mind. It's like, okay, we're going through this conflict. We're trying to be right. We're trying to make the other person wrong. And, it's like all we're trying to do is make it right. So we only need one of us to take the first step.
Yeah, Tony talks about being the leader. Like it only takes one person to go first. It only takes one person to be a leader.
Exactly. And what I learned from Shiv, my very close friend Shiv recently, is as the man, it's my responsibility to go first.
Ooh.
Because it's like at the end of the day, we both want a thriving relationship. And we know that, right? So regardless of the situation, it's my responsibility to lead us to the next, to the place that we want to be, right? Doesn't mean that you can't do that, right? Yeah. Or shouldn't do that. But regardless of the situation, it's my responsibility as a man to step forward and help resolve this, lead us to that position.
I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah, it's a lot of internal.
You have like your boy groups that like, I'm like, what happened? What do you guys talk about?
Men groups. Let's not call them boy groups.
That's funny.
I'm a man,
your
not a
man
boy.
Groups, your king groups.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm always like, what's going on? What happened?
These are the conversations we're having, right? It's like, how do we show up as better men in this world?
I love that.
Right? How do we show up as leaders? How do we be the best versions of ourselves that can lead and solve these problems and, all of that stuff? It's like, it comes from that place.
And from my perspective, so from like the feminine perspective, don't criticize and don't control. I'd see those are like the 2 big things, like being respectful in conflict, because it's so easy to take the shallow road and just criticize or control or shut down or withdraw or, it's like once you close your heart, you can still be open. And I've done this with you before. Like I can still be communicative. I can be like, I'm so fucking pissed off right now. Like I'm enraged in my body and all I want to do is, but like that's okay because I'm not criticizing him. I'm just sharing my true experience. Because shutting down and pulling my love away is actually more hurtful than me just being like, I'm so fucking mad at you right now. Like,
But also, you're an emotional being
what are you talking about?
and very passionate, but your feminine comes out through emotion.
Yeah.
And it's like when we're in conflict, like you can still have your heart open and, obviously love me, but saying things that you don't actually mean,
Yeah.
and it's all emotion and just
Yeah.
throwing this out. And again, as the man in the relationship, I got to take a step back and recognize that and say, okay, regardless if it's my fault or not, it's my
Mhm.
responsibility
Mhm.
to lead us to resolving this.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And that then goes to what you believe in and what you taught me is like, it only takes one of us to step forward first. So
Yeah.
I'm going to step forward first.
I love that. What is your favorite thing about each other?
You go first.
My favorite thing about you. Mm. There's so many things that come to mind. I'm trying to figure out my favorite thing.
Top 10.
Top 10. John's going to kick us out of his studio.
How we doing, John? All right. It's okay. We can't be contained, bro.
We can't be. Yeah, I can't be contained by time. Time's just an illusion, John. Didn't you know? My favorite thing about you is you are so loving and so considerate and so patient and so aware. And like, whenever I come to you with like emotion or like, you're just like, okay, all right. And you're just so patient and loving to all parties of everyone always. You're just such a stand for relationship, whether it's family, whether it's our relationship, whether it's your relationship with your friends. Like, you're so loving, you're so giving, you're so generous, you're so open. You just have like the biggest heart.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There's many other things, but that's the first thing that came to mind.
I received that. Thank you. Yeah, I think just your overall personality and energy for life, right? It's like I tell people this all the time of like your energy, and for people who don't actually know you in person but follow you on Instagram and everywhere else, like that energy that you show up with on Instagram is real. From the moment you wake up to the moment your body just completely shuts down at the end of the night and you just pass out, like that excitement for life is there all the time. And it's very rare that it's not there. And when it is, then I know that, okay, we got to sit down and have a conversation because something's happening. But that's what I love about you is that energy and that excitement that you bring to life, because it just energizes me to live at that level.
I love that. I love that. Why is Eric so cute?
That's true. Good question. Good question.
He was born that way. His mom and I, whenever we're together, we always go, he's so handsome.
He's so handsome.
I love your mom. Aw. Wedding plans and babies? Question mark.
Yes and yes.
So we're getting married September 21st.
That's right.
Super exciting.
Mhm.
We are having a elevated summer camp feel. My whole, like, our vision from day one was like, we want all of our favorite people to be in the same place for 3 days straight and just have so much fun and just play and eat yummy food and dance and love and just be intentional and sentimental. And so we found the most beautiful place to do that, which we're so excited about.
Mhm.
So, and then babies.
Whenever you're ready, girl.
Eric was 12 pounds, 6 ounces, so I'm
Yeah.
a little nervous to
Big
shove a
Moeller
Moeller
babies.
baby through my hoo-ha. God, your poor mom.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready. I'm ready. That's what that's like.
Let's like get through the wedding and then we'll
Yeah.
figure that out. How is Eric with your high energy?
That's a good question. I mean, how am I with your high energy?
I feel like 90% of the time you're great, and then there's 10% of the time where you're like, whoa, that's a lot.
It is a lot sometimes, but I love it.
What do you guys do to stay stress-free? I don't think we are stress-free.
Mm-mm. I don't. Why would you want to be stress free?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not growing if there's not stress around you, right? And it's like, how do we manage our stress is probably a better question. Which I would say is obviously the gym, breath work is huge.
Pausebreathwork.com. Just kidding.
Healthy lifestyles, healthy food, healthy sleep, amazing humans around us, right? It's like we're constantly trying to find the positive, and once we find something positive, we hold on to it, right? And it's like we find, and this is another podcast, so, we'll get into like how then once you live that lifestyle, the negative starts disappearing from mindset to lifestyle to the people that are in your life.
Yeah. It's like when you claim a new energetic place, or you claim a new standard, or you claim a new identity, the universe, God, just has an amazing way of just like shedding things out of your life. And if you could just let that fall away with ease versus like clinging onto things, you end up in such a better place. Tell us about your engagement. How was it? It was the best.
Let's bring John on to tell us about
It was the best thing
engagement.
ever. It was the best. It was the best thing ever. I always say, like, if real estate doesn't work out for you, you should teach men how to plan engagements, because it was just the most beautiful thing. And so it was the most beautiful 3 days of my entire life. Like he created this incredible experience in Idyllwild, California, our favorite place. And there's this beautiful rock on one of our favorite hikes. It's called Ernie Maxwell. And if you walk up on the right-hand side, there's this massive rock. And we call it the pause rock because whenever we go up there, we pause, we do breath work, and then we continue our hike. So one morning we were going up there, and he's like, do you want to go to the pause rock? I'm like, definitely. And we actually got into like a little bit of a bicker right before, because the way that you did it, you're like, oh, we're doing a photo shoot for Freewyld, which is his company. So we like went to REI and we got new clothes, and I got my hair and makeup done. And so we were like doing the shot, and I'm like, babe, we gotta do a vertical. You're like, we gotta do a horizontal. I'm like, no, do a vertical. We gotta do it for real. And then I got annoyed at you right before you got engaged. But it was amazing.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
We got to the rock, and I had a whole speech, and it disappeared, and I don't even remember.
I want to hear it
asking
one
you.
day.
Yeah, well, I forgot it. Yeah, and then we had our good friend John hiding in the woods. Got there at like 6 a.m., hiked up the mountain with a whole bunch of cameras, and
awesome.
Captured the whole experience, and it was just absolutely amazing.
It was so awesome. Then we went back, and there was 25 of our friends that surprised us. And so the engagement was beautiful. And I want to say, before we finish this question, is after our engagement, we went through the hardest 6 months of our relationship. Oh, yeah. And I think that's an important thing to talk about, because people don't talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
All of my commitment issues came up. That was triggering your abandonment stuff. There was just like so much stuff going on. And I realized, like, again, my first imprint of marriage was at 3.5, 4 years old, my parents getting a divorce. And so I didn't realize that stuff was living in my body, and I didn't realize how intense it was until after we got engaged. So all I'm saying is, if you're going to get engaged, get a great therapist and work through your shit, because you'll want to run away. But I really loved how during that whole period, you went through moments of worry, I'm sure, but more so than not, you were just like steady Eddie and held the ground as I swirled around for a little while.
Well, it wasn't just you. I mean, I was going through the same process, right? Because I think, everyone talks about engagement, and then everyone talks about marriage, and then they talk about kids, and then they talk about retirement.
But like,
right?
What about the in-betweens?
That's the point, right? It's like nobody talks about the fact that you are now fully committed to this person. And that meant a lot to me, that, we're family now. And that's, I'm like, oh man, this energy for the rest of my life.
He literally says that every day. I'll do something, and he'll be like, for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the engagement thing, I don't know if we got to wrap up here or not, but on the engagement thing, I think there's two things I want to say about that. One is, post engagement, you have some bliss, and then you have the reality, especially if you're at our age, right? We got engaged in our 30s, which is later for most human beings on this planet. We're two individuals that built in individual lives, and now we're coming together trying to create one life together.
And our lives are so full individually.
Yeah. And it's like, as you post engagement, like that reality hits, and it's like, and everybody I've seen in the last year get engaged goes through the same thing,
For sure.
which is really interesting. So just like know that that's the beauty of kind of facing this reality that like, hey, we're committing to this together, right? And once you get through that, there's beauty at the end.
Mhm.
Um, and then the last thing I wanted to say on this is like, and this is recently, I've been seeing this a lot on social media that men, and I guess it's like younger guys are kind of like looking down at the whole traditional way of engagement of like the man getting on the knee and
Mhm.
proposing. And there's this whole narrative out there now of like, oh, you don't need to do that anymore. How dare you get on your knee and like
Hmm.
beg this woman to like
Mm.
marry you and all this stuff. And to me, I think it was one of the greatest moments of my life of like showing and being vulnerable in that moment of saying like, hey, this is the one, you're the woman I want for the rest of my life. And I'm committing myself to
Aw.
you. So like that's an honor to bend a knee to that and open my heart, open my life to
Yeah.
that. Right. So this is more for the men. It's like, you got to honor that stuff. That's a beautiful thing to share with somebody and be that vulnerable. And this whole social media mindset of like, we don't need to do that stuff anymore. So you should be honored to marry me type of thing. I think that's a
Mhm.
terrible mindset. Right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that because it's
I
popping up
love
quite a
that.
bit. And I think,
I haven't even seen that.
yeah, I see it a
Mm.
lot.
Really?
And I think that is just a cultural narrative that's growing. We see a lot of people that see things on Instagram and then they just believe it and they adopt it. Right. So
Mm.
yeah, I just was inspired to share that.
No, I love that. I love that. There's some beautiful ideologies and traditions that you bring into our relationship that are really supportive, and we were just living in such a weird time right now, with all like the gender stuff going on and
Hmm.
all the societal whatever. There's just like so complicated. And you bring a level of simplicity to our relationship and a simplicity to how we do relationship. And it feels very solid and very grounded and very good, and I think that's an important thing for people is really feeling into what you believe. And whatever you believe is what you believe. But what I love about you is like you believe it and you know it and you practice it, you communicate it, and it becomes a reality. Right. And I think we live in such a confusing time right now where people are a little bit confused, a little bit disconnected. And so, an invitation for, men, women to feel into like what is actually a yes for me, because the world can get so noisy and we can get so pulled away from our truth and so pulled away from our yes, and so pulled away from this like divine union. Like, I really believe the masculine, feminine, divine union is such an important container for this world. Like we've talked about this before with our friends, like raising children in this very raising children in this way where there's like a very solid father figure and a very solid mother. If that's possible for you in this lifetime to create that, it's a beautiful thing to create. And I think we live in a world where like with the age of like swiping and all that kind of stuff, and like there's so many options. It's like, well, nah, fuck it. I'll go for another one. And it's like we're swiping through these potential partners who we could really create that divine union with. And one thing that we ask ourselves a lot is like, what is our relationship in service of? And realizing that this relationship is in service of our individual growth, but it's also in service of that divine union, and like being examples of that divine union for our communities, for our children, for people. Because a really powerful, thriving, healthy relationship is kind of rare.
Yeah. I watched a video of a older couple. They were in their 90s who were married for majority of their life, right? Together. And they asked them like, what is the secret to a thriving relationship? And they essentially were,
Blowjobs.
what's that? What'd you say?
It's in blowjobs.
Yes, definitely. What
Just
what
kidding.
they essentially were saying is like the patience to love each other,
Mm,
continually, right? And like what the man was talking about was like it's too easy nowadays for people to just give up. Like you
yeah.
get in one argument, it's too challenging, giving up, and it's too easy to go out and find the next shiny object, right? And it's like, we have to, if you're truly committed to somebody and love somebody, be okay with that. You're leaving all the other opportunities
Yeah.
behind to focus on this one
Mm,
thing. And even in the challenging times, it's, it's going to lead to something beautiful, right?
absolutely.
And there's something special that, when we were in Idyllwild, my parents at that concert, and the performer was asking, like, who's been married
Yes.
20
Yes.
years, and
Yes.
everyone's raising their hand. Who's been married 40 years, 50 years, and everyone's celebrating. The reason why humans celebrate that stuff is because it's a hard thing to do. And
Mm,
once we get through the hard parts and we're 30, 40, 50 years of marriage, like, it's such a beautiful thing to achieve as human beings, right? So it's like, yeah, like, welcome that, and just welcome the patience to love each other through those challenging times.
I love that. I love that. This has been so fun.
Let's keep going. We can't be contained, bro.
This has been so fun. I'm so happy you came in and did this. This is beautiful. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right, guys. You can follow Eric at
Stay Freewyld. You don't have to follow me. Follow the company.
yeah, you can check out what Eric's doing. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen it. It's just so beautiful, creating these beautiful design forward mountain. Gosh, it's like these elevated short-term rental experiences in beautiful mountain towns, and it's just you stay in this property and everything's so luxurious and beautiful and intentional and design forward. It's just so gorgeous. So if you desire to have a little bit of a getaway, come check it out. So yeah, that's at Stay Freewyld, and we'll put it in the show notes too.
Thank
All
you.
right, see you guys later.